Welcome back to Friday Reads, where we help you find your next read. I'm Jill.
And I'm Julie, and this week we're going to feature some new books from the first quarter of this year. Jill and I have not had a chance to read any of these because they are so new, but we thought we'd point out some new ones that maybe would interest you. So, Jill, what's your first pick?
So my first one is by a newer author, Olivia Dade. It's called At First Spite. Best-selling author Olivia Dade welcomes you to Harlot's Bay in this delightfully sexy rom-com about a woman who buys a town's famous spite house only to realize the infuriating man she can't stand lives right next door, and their unwilling proximity might spark something neither can ignore. When Athena Graydon's fiancé ends their engagement, she has no choice but to move into the spite house she recklessly bought him as a wedding gift. This is a problem for several reasons. The house, originally built as a brick middle finger to the neighbors, is only 10 feet wide. Her ex's home is attached to hers, and Dr. Matthew Vine, the freaking third, a.k.a. the uptight, judgmental jerk who convinced his younger brother to leave her, is living on the other side, only a 4-foot alley away. If she has to see Matthew every time she looks out her window, she might as well have some fun with the situation by, say, playing erotic audiobooks at top volume with the windows open. A woman living in a spite house is basically obligated to get petty payback however she can, right? Unfortunately, loathing Matthew proves more difficult than anticipating. He helps her move. He listens. He's kind of hot. This was published in February 2023 at First Spite.
I like the title.
Yeah, it's cute.
My first pick comes from an author that's popular here, and this is Luann Rice's Last Night. If you're fans of The Shadow Box or Last Day, this is a breathtaking thriller about a family shaken by lies, vengeance, and a cold-blooded crime. A fierce blizzard is burying the eastern seaboard, but on the icy Rhode Island shore, renowned artist Maddie Morrison finds warm sanctuary from a contentious divorce at the legendary Ocean House. Hours later, her body is found buried under a blanket of snow, and her little daughter has disappeared without a trace. For Detective Connor Reed, his brother Tom, a Coast Guard commander, and Maddie's grieving sister Hadley, this posh hotel becomes ground zero for an investigation. Trapped by the blizzard, they must hunker down and determine who in the young mother's life could have possibly wanted her dead. There are stories of a twisted romantic past, of old jealousies and resentments that still cut to the bone, and a history of greed, rage, and revenge that created the perfect storm for murder. A storm that has just begun.
Neat. Well, if you're a fan of cozy mysteries, we have a new one by M.C. Beaton, Death of a Spy. This is number 36 in the Hamish Macbeth series, so quite a few of these if you start getting into them. Sergeant Hamish Macbeth has some major problems to deal with. Crimes and criminals, even law enforcement agents that he doesn't want anywhere near his beloved Highland village in Loch Dub. Hamish is worried about how the locals, as well as those in the wider area of his territory in Sutherland, will react to his new assistant officer. The officer is none other than the enigmatic American James Bland, who is on an exchange scheme from his home city of Chicago in the United States, supposedly to study policing methods in Scotland. Hamish knows that this is far from the truth, having recently become involved in identifying a Russian spy ring to solve a murder. He is aware that Bland's mission is to track down the members of the spy network still at large. Bland trusts Hamish to help him find those who may have been or may still be in league with the Russians. In the meantime, he and Bland have to contend with everyday chores of rural policing. The tourist season brings its usual crop of traffic incidents, lost wallets, lost dogs, and people who are simply lost. But a spate of burglaries and robberies committed by a man described as having a gold tooth and a spider's web tattoo on his neck give Hamish cause for serious concern. The robberies become increasingly violent, and the man is dubbed Spider-Man by the local press. Hamish has to use all of his contacts and every ounce of his Highland guile to find the robber. So this was published in February 2023.
I have not read any of her books.
Me neither, but she's still writing them.
My next pick is The Fortune Seller by Rachel Kopelke-Dale. She's the author of The Ballerinas, if you're familiar with that. This is actually in our Lucky Day collection right now. Middle-class Rosie McAllister has worked for years to fit in with her wealthy friends on the Yale equestrian team. But when she comes back from her junior year abroad with newfound confidence, she finds the group has been infiltrated by the mysterious Annalise. A talented tarot reader and a brilliant writer, the Annalise is unlike anyone Rosie has ever met. But when one of her friends notices money disappearing from her bank account, Annalise's place in the circle gets thrown into question. As the women turn against each other, the group's unspoken tensions and assumptions lead to devastating consequences. It's only after graduation, when Rosie begins a job at a Manhattan hedge fund, that she begins to uncover Annalise's true identity and how her place in their elite Yale set was no accident. Is it too late for Rosie to make right what went wrong, or does everyone's luck run out at some point? It's set in the early days of the early aughts. The Fortune Seller is a haunting examination of class, ambition, and the desires that shape our lives. So, The Fortune Seller.
The early aughts. So this is also a popular author, but it doesn't seem to be part of a series. So if you just want to try out someone new, if you haven't tried Dean Koontz yet, then this might be the one for you. Dean Koontz, Bad Weather Friend. Benny is so nice they feel compelled to destroy him, but he has a friend who should scare the hell out of him. Benny Catsbaugh's perpetually sunny disposition is tested when he loses his job, his reputation, his fiancée, and his favorite chair. He's not paranoid. Someone is out to get him. He just doesn't know who or why. Then Benny receives an inheritance from an uncle he's never heard of, a giant crate and a video message. All will be well in time. How strange, though it's a blessing, his uncle promises. Stranger yet is what's inside the crate. He's 7-foot-tall, self-described bad weather friend named Spike, whose mission is to help people who are just too good for this world. Spike will take care of it. He'll find Benny's enemies. He'll deal with them. He might be satisfying if Spike wasn't such a menacing presence with the terrifying techniques of intimidation. In the company of Spike and a fascinating young waitress come PI in training named Harper, Benny plunges into a perilous high-speed adventure, the likes of which never would have crossed his mind, a decent guy like him. So,
Dean Koontz.
Bad Weather Friend. Yeah. I wasn't expecting that from him, but it's kind of different.
My third pick comes from our Wisconsin nonfiction collection. It's got a little bit of glare on the cover. It is Never Given Up, The Life and Music of Al Jarreau by Kurt Dietrich. It's the first biography to chronicle the life and career of one of the most distinguished and beloved musical artists to come out of Milwaukee, Al Jarreau. From his earliest days singing in the 1940s until his death in 2017, Al Jarreau defied categorization. While his biggest hit, We're in This Love Together, is pure pop, he smashed music industry stereotypes as the first artist to win Grammy Awards in 3 categories: jazz, pop, and R&B. This book traces Jarreau's singing career from humble beginnings in his hometown of Milwaukee to international fame. The narrative includes his formative student days at Ripon College and the University of Iowa, as well as the years spent honing his craft at night spots in Milwaukee, San Francisco, and the Twin Cities. After he was signed by Warner Brothers Records in 1975, at the age of 35, Al Jarreau achieved stardom with his innovative vocal stylings and electric live performances. It features 54 images spanning his career, from never-before-seen family snapshots to stills from his legendary stage performances. And this book celebrates Milwaukee hometown hero and a global sensation. Tim and I are huge fans of Al Jarreau, a lot of his music CDs. So this book's actually coming home with me. So Never Given Up.
That's fun when we find books.
I know.
So this next one is kind of different. This one has been edited by Margaret Atwood, which sounds familiar to you. She's the Handmaid's Tale author. It's called 14 Days, and it's kind of a collection of short stories of sort. 14 Days is a short story collection with a twist. All the stories are fed to us via characters in a New York apartment building, and each one is written by a different author. Set during the COVID lockdown, the cast of characters gather on the roof of their building to exchange stories. Atwood, R.L. Stein, Nora Roberts, Celeste Nig, Neil Gaiman, David Byrne from the Talking Heads, the Magic Treehouse Lady, and the author of Sex and the City, and many more you wouldn't expect, got together in writing the characters for this novel. 36 authors total, with a variety of literary backgrounds, collaborate to tell the stories of a group of New Yorkers who are unable to escape the city during the COVID pandemic. Unlike affluent city dwellers, it's March 31st, day one, the first day of lockdown, and the story is told over the next 14 days. The characters are tenants of the grandly named Fernsby Arms, a misleading name indeed for a rundown block which has thus far avoided gentrification. The new super of the less than salubrious building holds the whole thing together. Life has dealt her many lemons, and yet she's still upstanding, tough, strong woman. In amongst the detritus left by the previous super, she finds the Fernsby Bible, a handmade book of observations of tenants who glory in appropriate nicknames such as Vinegar, Eurovision, Florida, and Hello Kitty. She's also left with a little bit of magic, a key on the rooftop terrace, which affords spectacular views way beyond the price of rent. One by one, the tenants drift up there, find a place to sit, socially distanced naturally, and the price of admission is to tell a story, so they do. Some of you will be thinking this is not another pandemic novel, but whether you like it or not, it's cataclysmic and a pivotal event that will go down in history books as hugely important and significant. Many of us are still living with the outcome of the pandemic, and let's face it, it's still here. Some of us are still trying to process it, and this book will help you because it's all about the pandemic and their stories. So 14 days.
36 authors.
36.
Wow.
Different people.
All right, my fourth pick is A Very Typical Family by Sierra Godfrey. All families are messy, some are disasters. Natalie Walker is the reason her older brother and sister went to prison over 15 years ago. She fled California shortly after that fateful night and hasn't spoken to anyone in her family since. Now, on the same day her boyfriend steals her dream job out from under her, Natalie receives a letter from a lawyer saying her estranged mother has died and left the family's historic Santa Cruz house to her. Sort of. The only way for Natalie and her siblings to inherit is for all 3 adult children to come back together and claim it together. Natalie drives cross-country to Santa Cruz with her willful cat in tow, expecting to sign some papers, see siblings Lynn and Jake briefly, and get back to sorting out her life in Boston. But Jake, now an award-winning ornithologist, is missing. And Lynn, working as an undertaker in New York City, shows up with a teenage son. While Natalie and her nephew look for Jake, meeting a very handsome marine biologist who immediately captures her heart, she unpacks the guilt she has held onto for so many years, wondering how or if she can salvage a relationship with her siblings after all this time. A Very Typical Family navigates the messy yet warm-hearted journey of a family struggling to find each other again. It's written with delightfully dark humor and characters you can't help but cheer for. It's a debut book from Sierra Godfrey and will have you reveling in the power of family and second chances. No one can change the past, but every day is an opportunity to choose your future. So check out A Very Typical Family.
I like the cover on that one, too. So my last one is by Mike Chen. It's called A Quantum Love Story. The only thing harder than finding someone in a time loop is losing them. Grieving her best friend's recent death, neuroscientist Maria Pineda was ready to give up everything to start anew, even her career, after one last week consulting a top-secret particle accelerator. Except the strangest thing, a man stops her and claims they've met before. Carter Cho knows who she is, why she's mourning, why she's there, and he needs Mariana to help remember everything he's saying, because time is about to loop. In a flash of energy, it's Monday morning. Again, together Mariana and Carter enter an inevitable life, 4 days at a time, over and over again, without permanence except for what they share. With everything resetting, even bank accounts, joy comes in the little things, a delicious and expensive meal, a tennis match, giving a dog his favorite treat. In some ways, those are all that matter. But just as they figure out this new life, everything changes because Carter's memories of the time loop are slowly disappearing, and their only chance at happiness is breaking out of the loop forever. So, yeah, this was published in January. So
Quantum Love Story.
A little science
Cute.
for you.
My last pick is Ellery Adams' Murder on the Poet's Walk. When corpses clutching poems begin turning up around Storyton Hall, resort manager Jane Stewart is on the trail of someone exercising poetic license to kill. As Jane eagerly anticipates the wedding of her best friend Eloise Elcott, Storyton Hall is overrun with poets in town to compete for a coveted greeting card contract. They're everywhere. They're scrawling verses on cocktail napkins in the reading rooms or seeking inspiration, strolling the Poet's Walk, a series of trails named after famous authors. But the Tennyson Trail leads to a grim surprise, a woman's corpse drifting in a rowboat on a lake, a crumpled copy of The Lady of Shalott in her lifeless fist. When a second body gets discovered, also holding a page from a poetry book, a recurring MO emerges. Fortunately, Jane is well versed in sleuthing, and she won't rest until she gives the killer a taste of poetic justice. So, Murder on the Poet's Walk.
Nice. Well, we hope you gave you a good overview of what's new on our shelves. And
Yeah, come in and check out some of these new books. They sound pretty good.
Yeah.
Like I said, Jill and I haven't been able to read any of them
found
yet.
a couple here I want to read.
Find us on our Facebook channel, on our Kimberly Public Library website. Check us out on YouTube. You can give us a like there if you'd like. We always like to hear from you and hear what you're reading. If you've read any new books by favorite authors or debut authors, let us know. And until next time, thanks for watching.
Bye.